Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Simone here, and today is a bit of a difficult video for me to film, and you can probably tell by the title. I wanted to film a kind of mental health journey video, and then there will be another one coming in a couple of weeks' time. But as you know, I'm currently co-hosting the Mental Healthathon. And I think it's really important to talk about mental health and to spread awareness and to talk about different bits and pieces. And I wanted to talk, I've already made a video, I think it was last year, I made a video about my anxiety and depression, which I'll link down below for you. But you can go and check that out, and that is about my struggles with anxiety and depression in particular. But I wanted to talk about it in a different context because I think sometimes it's quite easy to think of mental health problems as a specific diagnosis. So it could be anxiety, it could be depression, it could be bipolar, it could be schizophrenia, that kind of thing. It could be any one of those things. But often I think that sometimes things are naturally the way that we are. So it could be something that you have genetic predisposition for. It could be something that you has been triggered by a life event. So for me, my anxiety and depression was triggered by a work situation, and that caused me a lot of issues. But since then, my anxiety and depression often gets worse because of life events. And the thing I want to talk about today is miscarriage. So there are definite trigger warnings in this video for baby loss, miscarriage, and that kind of thing. I'm not going to go into any gory details or anything like that, so don't worry about that. I'm more going to talk about it in terms of mental health and how it has affected me. So I have had 4 miscarriages. My first one was when I was 23. Yeah, 23, and I've essentially had one a year since then. Pretty much, not totally, but yeah, pretty much. And my most recent one was in December of last year. I think it actually was 2 days before Christmas. So yeah, I wanted to talk about it in that. I am making this video because I really want to be able to talk about it. It's something that is a massive taboo. I feel like you don't often hear people talk about it, and completely understand people that don't want to talk about it. It's definitely not a subject that everybody is comfortable being open about, but I almost wish I had that where I could talk about it more, and I could, and I just want to be there for people as well. If you have suffered from a miscarriage, or you have any experience with it, or you just yeah, anything like that at all, then I would like you to be able to talk about it if you want to, whether that's one-to-one with me, or whether that is in the comments or just on Twitter in general, or whatever. So I wanted to very quickly, I'll give you like a potted history. As I said, I'm not going to go into any like massive detail about it because it's very personal anyway, but it's also just something that I don't like to dwell on too much, because if I think about the specific details, I get very overwhelmed. But so I had, like I said, I had my first miscarriage, in fact my first 2. I didn't actually know I was pregnant at the time when I miscarried. So I had 2, both times I started to bleed, went to the doctors, went to the hospital, had loads of whatever, and they said you're miscarrying. And I was incredibly shocked, especially the first time, because I had no intention of being pregnant at the time. We weren't trying, it wasn't anything like that. We were still in a very long distance relationship, so it wasn't even on the cards. And it kind of happened, in fact they happened within about 6 or 7 months of each other. I should also say it was on the pill throughout. Well, for the first 3 I was definitely on the pill, the last one not so much, but again had not been trying for any of them. And like I said, the first 2 I didn't know I was pregnant, so it came as a massive shock to me. Initially thought I was just having an incredibly bad period, and then yeah, turned out not to be. And the first 2 I was 15 and 13 weeks respectively. So I was quite far along really, like I would have been in my second trimester each time. And for me, the thing that I struggle with the most is the fact that, one, I didn't know. So I had no, in one way, it was very different to the third time I had a miscarriage. I knew I was pregnant. I hadn't yet told AJ, I was just going to tell him. And then it happened. So again, that was a difficult thing. That time I was also 12 weeks along. So again, it was, you know, coming up to the kind of third, you know, second trimester, whatever. And I think the difficulty I had was the fact that because initially in the first two I didn't know I was pregnant, so I didn't ever have that build up of like, what could this be? This could be really exciting. But it was trying to come to terms to not only was I pregnant, but I was also losing the baby. So it was very it was a really difficult time because I couldn't grieve in the correct way. I felt like I couldn't grieve the way I wanted to because I still was in shock. So it was like trying to figure out what was going on and then also grieve for the thing that I didn't know was happening but now isn't happening. And it's like, okay, I've definitely, the most recent one, like I said, was in December, and obviously me and AJ moved in together in November. I was only would have been like 5 or 6 weeks along. Like, it was very, very early days in that one. And I had a feeling, but I'd taken a pregnancy test the week before and it was negative. So I had just assumed, well, you're probably coming on your period and you just think like, it just feels strange. And then we were actually driving to see my dad on the 22nd of December, and I felt really strange in the car on the way home. And yeah, basically then overnight kind of things got worse, and obviously found out I was having a miscarriage. And yeah, it's a difficult thing. Hadn't, like I said, in the last one I had an inkling I was pregnant but didn't actually know for definite, and so it was kind of, again, that coming to terms with, you're pregnant, oh but now you're not. And it's something that's definitely affected my mental health in a very negative way. I struggle, what I wanted to talk about more than kind of like the actual miscarriages themselves, which are horrendous and like have been really bad, like they're just awful and it's a horrible thing to go through. But I wanted to talk about the things that I now get triggered by and the things that I struggle with, the things in my mental health that I struggle with the most about it, because I want to be open with you guys. So one of the main things that I struggle with, like I said, is I always feel bad as if oh, there's a dog outside. I always feel bad that, because I feel like I did something, and I think this is a thing I've talked a lot about with my counsellor, but I talked a lot about the fact that I feel like because I didn't know about it, and because I didn't actively want it at that point, like I wasn't like, it wasn't like I didn't want it, but in terms of like I hadn't been trying, so I hadn't been planning and I hadn't thought about it, and because I didn't know about it, I was telling myself that I caused the baby to not be there anymore because I didn't want it, or because it wasn't something that I knew about. And other things that have affected me quite badly. So I now get massively and this sounds so strange and it's really hard to explain to people, but I get really badly triggered when I get my period now, because the sight of blood is very stark and very kind of like a reminder, and I always have a fear, because I didn't know before. I have this fear now every single time that this is another miscarriage, even though I don't know that I'm pregnant, or I'm not pregnant, or I'm not thinking about being pregnant, or I'm just actively not trying to be pregnant, or I'm actively trying to not be pregnant. It's a difficult one. It's a really difficult one. It's definitely affected my mental health badly in that respect. I'm not really sure if this video is making any sense. I'm just trying to like get everything out. I've got so many things in my head I really should have probably written down. kind of what, yeah. I'm sure I'm missing things. Yeah, I really struggle every single month to that, like 3 or 4 days. I'm really lucky and I don't have painful periods, but my mental health goes down massively around that time. Now, a lot of people I've heard say their mental health goes down around the time of the period, but it's, I guess, for a different reason. Mine's more because of the physical reminder of blood, which is obviously something that triggers a pretty bad memory for me and makes me feel pretty horrendous about it. I don't think I've fully come to terms with the most recent one. One of the biggest things, and it's something that I do and then I realise what I'm doing and I try and stop myself, is I think about what could have been. So I think to myself, well, if you hadn't have had 4 miscarriages, you'd have 4 children by now, which, I mean, in itself is a little bit scary, but I think it's true. Like, I could potentially, I mean, I couldn't because 2 of them were so close together, but even still, like, logistically that wouldn't be the case. But I think it's a difficult thing, and when I come up to, like, anniversaries of it, I think, like, oh, you'd have a 1-year-old now, or you'd have, like obviously the oldest one was when I was 23, which is, to me, nearly 5 years ago, so, you know, I'd have a 5-year-old, and the thought of that is quite scary, and quite, like, sort of a kick to the gut every single time. It's a very difficult thing to come to terms with, and it hasn't happened for me yet. Again, we're not actively trying right now. It's something that, obviously, like I said, I've mentioned a lot of times, we're getting married this year, so it's something that I definitely want to do after, but it's also very scary for me because I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know if I'm going to be able to have children. I don't know if I tell myself that when I want children, when I'm actively trying, it will be different, but I don't know if it will, and that's a pretty scary place to be. I've wanted to have children my whole life. I always want to be a mother, and it's something that I definitely want to do, and I'm excited to do. But the idea that might not happen for me is terrifying, and I'm not sure how I feel about that. I'm also, one of my big anxieties and my big kind of things that I've always struggled with is lack of control. And obviously this is not a situation that I can be in control of. It's not a situation that I have been in control of. It's not a situation that I will be. And I truly, truly hope that it happens for us. I hope it happens for any of you that have had them too, and that you're still trying, or you're all really wanting, because it's horrible. It's truly, truly horrible, and it kind of makes you feel like your body has failed you. And I feel like I do the thing in my head where I'm like, it's because you're too fat, it's because you did this, it's because you had an eating disorder when you were younger and it's caused you these problems, and it's not that. Like, it's not. And like, each time it's happened, I've had different tests and things, and I had what was called pelvic inflammatory disease, and I had a blood clot in my cervix, I believe. So I had to take aspirin, and they've told me I need to take aspirin basically when I start to try, because they want me to take 1 a day just to stop the clotting and see if that helps. But they haven't really got a full, like, reason, I guess, why it happened, like, because those reasons would potentially make it more difficult to get pregnant, but the fact that it stopped during the pregnancy is the thing that they're not really sure about. So for me, it's like, I wish I had an answer and knew one way or the other. And yeah, I think, like I said, it is something that affects me daily. It's something that I really struggle with. I see, like, after my first miscarriage, my godson was born. He's 3 now, so it was after my second or whatever. And I when I was a tiny baby, I really struggled to just go and visit him, and my lovely best friend, she was so lovely, and she was very like helpful and honest and open with me how she was feeling, and I was the same with her. And she made me feel a lot better about it, because I really struggled, because I didn't want to see little babies. I really struggled to see babies just after, because in my head I was never going to have that. Like the immediate like jump to quick reaction. But yeah, so I think I'm probably going to leave it here. I hope that this has made any sense at all. Like I said, this is mostly just me rambling on about you know, things that have happened, but whatever. I hope that it's helped some of you. Please let me know if you have any questions or you want to know anything. I should also say AJ's been incredibly supportive the whole time. He's so lovely. He looks after me, and you know, he's grieving for it too, so it's definitely something that we've both had to do together, and it's made us stronger, I think. But yeah, hopefully it'll happen for us one day. Hopefully it'll happen for you too one day if you want it. Also, just a really quick thing at the end, because something that really bugs me is when, and I know I've shared this on Twitter many times, but when you meet somebody and maybe not the first thing they say, but one of the things they say is, when are you going to have kids then? And I'm dreading, there's one reason why I'm dreading after we get married, the next thing that's going to get asked is, so when are you having kids? And if you know somebody who hasn't got children, and it could be their choice and it could be not their choice, just don't ask them when they're having kids, because it breaks my heart every single time. Like, you know, it's not necessarily something that's in our control, so yeah. But I hope you've enjoyed this video as much as you can. But yeah, that is my mental health journey with talking about miscarriage. I will have another mental health journey coming towards the end of the month, where I'm going to be talking about my eating disorder, because again, I want to talk about it and I want to share my experiences. I hope this has made any sense. Like I said, I feel like I've just rambled pretty much through the whole thing, but you know, and yeah, and I love you guys so much. Thank you so much for your support, because I know that there'll be loads of lovely comments, because you guys always do. And I'll see you next time for another video. Bye guys.